Hello, hello, and welcome back to Euphoric Evolution. So excited to have you here. Today, we are diving into what is this one thing that is keeping you from making more money. And if you are a woman specifically, this is going to be potentially life changing. So if you're new here, my name is Makosi. I also go by the Royal Shaman, and I help incredible conscious change makers literally create seven-figure empires and fulfill their calling through quantum energetics as well as transformation of identity. So, we're going to dive right in. And I almost forgot to say happy Mother's Day to each and every one of you who has stepped into the role of mother. There is, in my perspective, no greater calling, and also no more challenging calling than motherhood in so many ways. And it's like the growth that never ends, because in each phase there's more opportunity for you to work on your stuff. So I hope that you are being spoiled today, taking some time for yourself, getting that self-care in, maybe treating yourself to dinner. I think I'm trying to decide still if I'm going to go see a movie alone, because I am a person who highly values alone time. And there's a movie that I think probably my husband and son would not be into. Or if we're going to go see Guardians of the Galaxy together. So, anyway, I'm loving this Mother's Day. It's been super special for me. My son launched his business last week, and I don't know, he's made like $200, $300. Actually, I think he's up to 300. And in addition to reinvesting in his business, he also bought me a card and two candles, and then he treated me to a guava croissant for breakfast, which was super sweet. So, anyway, enough of all of that. Let's dive into why you're not making more money. I often go on walks, and I had this realization because I've been asking myself some questions that other people have asked, but I've been reflecting on them and going deeper. And one of those questions that I get often is, what was the turning point for me to be able to go from um, complete poverty, sometimes having no heat, struggling to figure out how we are going to eat, that kind of life, to now running a seven-figure plus business, working with other incredible entrepreneurs at all different stages, and now really stepping into more and more guiding others, especially women, to follow their calling and step into their leadership and really build empires. So it it crossed my mind that we have some thoughts, we have some ways of perceiving things that ultimately keep us from fulfilling our calling, but also from living to the highest of our potential. And I was listening to a podcast episode by this author. I think her name is Elise Lonan or something like that. And oh my gosh, it just triggered so many things in my mind. So we're going to dive into that. This thing, this paradigm, this block that's keeping you from making more money is ultimately this program that women are here to be good, men are here to be powerful. Women are here to be good. It's like we're always trying to overcompensate or make up for the quote unquote sin that we apparently committed as per the Bible. And in doing that, we are constantly trying to be good, whereas men are encouraged and taught to be powerful, to seek power. Okay. And There's some levels. There's some levels to this. So we've got to first think about or break down, what does it mean to be good? What do we think it means to be good? What are we constantly trying to do in order to be good, or not do in order to be good? There are many different perspectives on this. One of them pertains especially to motherhood, but just in general, we are taught to abandon our own standards, our own desires, our own needs as a sacrifice for others, for what others need, in order to take care of everyone else and put ourselves last. In fact, even as children, right, we get praised as little girls for our ability to be quiet, to not cause disruption, to um, prioritize what makes other people feel comfortable, feel safe, feel good, and not rock the boat. Whether that is, with your parents, whether it's with your siblings, in your classrooms, right? Most of us are not encouraged to speak what's actually on our mind, to communicate what's true to us, and ultimately suppress and dampen ourselves. The other piece of this as well is we are programmed into restriction. I think about like the sheer number of articles that I've seen about, oh, if women want to, take care of their households financially, they need to cut out the Starbucks, as if somehow cutting out a $5 a day cup of coffee is going to make you millions of dollars. Can it? Sure. Is it going to probably take an entire lifetime? Yes. We're rarely taught that we can expand, right? We're rarely taught that expansion is even a viable way to go about growth and finances and love and so on and so forth. We constantly look at, okay, I want to get to this level. What is it that I need to sacrifice? What is it that I need to cut out? The other thing of this that's interesting to me is how men are typically taught and guided in how to gain access to power, how to gain power. And well, I can just ask you, do you want more power? Sit with that for a second. Do you want more power? Pay attention to what automatically pops up. Most likely, what you immediately thought was, oh, absolutely not. I don't want power. I don't want power, because we associate power to mean greed, domination, aggression, um, abuse, taking advantage of other people. So there are very few women who actually want power. I also fell into this category, and I've had to work through it. So I took Sally Hogshead Fascination Advantage. It's an incredible test, by the way. But my primary advantage is power. My primary was power. My secondary is mystique. And if you know me at all, that probably makes sense. But power was a really difficult one for me to accept, because as a woman, power is not something that we're usually able to claim. And it's usually like a dirty word to us. So I want to talk about and really invite you to explore what power is and how you can really reframe your relationship with power, because your proximity to power is what will make you money. The more power that you proclaim, the more power that you accept and receive, the more money that you will make, because money is a tool of power. Now, I mentioned some of the shadow aspects of power because let's be honest, we've experienced and seen many examples of power used in a way that is not to the benefit of all. It is not, it doesn't take others into itself. So much so that we associate power automatically with greed. So that brings up for us how much is enough, right? We're constantly thinking about, well, um, I just want enough. I just want enough money to have this existence where I get to be home with my kids, or I get to take a vacation once a year, and I can, I can get my nails done and everything's great. For me, when I first started in entrepreneurship full time back in 2013, I just wanted to make, like, enough for me was I just wanted to make $500 a month. You see, I did all of the calculations. At the time I was a manager at Target. I did all of the calculations and I figured out that after childcare and gas and clothing, I only needed to make $500 more and I would basically break even with my job as a manager at Target. This ultimately, as long as I could make $500 a month, it would allow for me to have my dream of being at home with my son. At the time, he was 1 year old, and I hated taking him to daycare every day. It was brutal. So for me, enough was $500 so that I could basically live the same existence. But now, and since then, the question is not is quote unquote enough. It's turned into how much allows for me to take the absolute best care of myself and my family, and also create the greatest impact. This is, I got this term from my friend. I'm always looking for the ROI, the ripple of impact, not return on investment, but the ripple of impact. So I'm always looking at how can I receive enough, quote unquote, enough for the highest ROI, ripple of impact. And ultimately, it keeps expanding, right? It's not just oh, well, I allowed myself to make $100,000. That's quote unquote enough. So, first and foremost, you've got to expand the possibilities beyond yourself. Now, at first, it's important to look at fulfilling your needs, taking care of yourself first. And then when that has happened, allowing yourself to explore, well, what would it look like if I was able to impact more people, impact others, impact my team, impact clients, speak on bigger stages, so on and so forth, and allow yourself the permission to do that. The second piece here is to really redefine power as responsibility. I have a chapter in my new book that will be coming out soon about hierarchy, and I really struggled with this chunk of the book because I've noticed a pattern in humanity that when we experience so much of the dark side of something, whether it be hierarchy or patriarchy or uh, whatever political spectrum, right? when we experience so much of the negative of it, we automatically put a label on it that it is quote unquote bad. And hierarchy is one of those things, to the point that I see um, a lot of distortion around what hierarchy actually means. So we think of hierarchy to mean that one person at the top is the most important, most worthy, most valuable person, right? And then everybody below them is in like decreasing levels of value, to the point the people at the quote unquote bottom are just peons or slaves, right? They have almost no value in this hierarchical structure. However, the original and ancient context of why hierarchy existed was that hierarchy was actually connected with responsibility. It wasn't that the person at the top was the most powerful and therefore the most valuable and the most important person. No, the entire intention of the structure was that the person at the top of that was responsible for all of those below. So this creates a shift in what leadership means. Leadership is not about just power, it is actually about responsibility and taking responsibility. What I've noticed when it comes to making money, the more responsibility that I take, the more money that I make. Write that down. The more responsibility that I take, the more money that I make. So for me, what that means is I don't, I'm not responsible completely for someone else's transformation. I can't cause that. However, I look at the world and look at, okay, what are the things that I can impact? What are the things that I can affect change in? And taking responsibility for that, not waiting for some other leader or some political party or, my husband or anything else outside of me to change that, but instead taking responsibility for that change in the world that I want to see. This is actual leadership, right? Where we are not just taking responsibility for ourselves, but also taking responsibility for the direction of humanity, taking responsibility, taking responsibility for the world we leave to our descendants. And the more responsibility that I take for my family, for um, for women, for spiritual entrepreneurs, so on and so forth, the more that I find that I'm able to make more money and also create a greater ROI or ripple of impact, right? So shifting, I think, our perspective of hierarchy, because I see so many women who are called to leadership who have this funky, distorted view of hierarchy because we've made hierarchy mean value instead of responsibility. And that keeps them from actually stepping up into their role and claiming that. The beauty is that part of why you make more money is because as you're taking responsibility for more people, you need more resources in the form of money, opportunities, connections, so on and so forth, in order to create the impact that you are called to create in this world. So you see how all of these things go hand in hand. I I feel so passionate about women stepping into leadership more and more, especially in business. I feel like entrepreneurship is such a great place because it has been statistically proven that women make better leaders because of our emotional intelligence, and men who are tapped into their yin or their feminine qualities, it brings them emotional intelligence, and they are better leaders, right? But statistically, women are better with money. Yes, we have less of it right now. We are changing that, but we are better with money. We also tend to be more generous and philanthropic. We tend to make better investments. We don't get wrapped up as easily in ego driven endeavors that give you like those dopamine hits, and so you're just taking risks to look cool. We also don't tend to feel a need for 18 sports cars, right? Unless you're super into cars, like what's her name, the car blonde, is that what her name is? Anyway, in general, we tend to be better stewards of money. So part of this, at least the core of my message, is that I wanted more women stepping into leadership, um, embracing power, embracing leadership, embracing the responsibility, and understanding that when they open themselves up to receive abundance, that will allow for them to create and affect greater levels of change. Now, the final part to allow to um, really embrace power is really getting in touch with your authentic desires. Notice that I said your desires, not your wants. Okay. So, what is the difference? Our wants are often fueled by ego, what we think will make us look good, stay safe, stay connected, so on and so forth. Our desires tend to be those very deep intrinsic things that we desire to experience regardless of who's around, regardless of um, how that might make us look, so on and so forth. Uh, I was talking with one of my return clients this week who we were talking about her big vision, and immediately she was like, well, I don't have a big vision. My big vision is to get to be mom and wife and food and so on and so forth. And often we just demean our true desires because we think that our desires should look like a Lamborghini in the driveway, and a 10,000 square foot mansion and private jet. And mind you, I have clients who that is their experience and that is their authentic desires. However, if your authentic desires are, to start a tiny home community on a plot of land in Ohio, then that is your truth. That is your authentic desire. But so often we limit our authentic desires because we think that either we aren't worthy of it, or like, who am I to experience that, or oh, it's not the kind of like Instagram Instagram worthy vision of whatever that means. I'm just immediately having all of these images flash of what everyone thinks their quote unquote vision board should look like. But you have to start allowing your desires to be given voice, like the actual truth of what it is you desire, whether that is $1 million months, whether it is a home in the Maldives, whether it is a chicken farm in Tennessee. Allowing yourself permission to have those desires come up, and understand that what we will experience as financial abundance, as prosperity, is allowing ourselves to be in charge of an expanded flow of money, right? An expanded flow of money. So maybe in order to facilitate you having the fulfillment of your desire to have a chicken farm in Tennessee, that instead of just allowing $10,000 a month into your world, and that's what comes in and goes out and so on and so forth, that you expand that to 100,000, which also maybe includes more team who also have their own desires, and they're able to then do the things that they desire and have the lifestyle that they desire, and you benefit as well and finally get that chicken farm in Tennessee. I don't know why I'm on the chicken farm in Tennessee. But that could be somebody's legit desire, right? So anyway, I'm bringing up this concept of expanded flow of money because so often we think, oh, if I just had more money in my bank account, and everything becomes about chasing more money instead of expanding the flow of money that moves in and out of your world, because we're not meant to hold money, by the way. Money does not like to be just held sitting there. In fact, um I have an account that money flows in and out of. I usually keep about $100,000 in this account, give or take. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. And if that account 3 years ago was worth more than it is now, money is supposed to move. So it's more about expanding the amount of money that is able to flow in and out of our world. My account back in, let's say, 2020, that was holding $100,000, maybe that account looks exactly the same, right? But in these past 3 years, I've expanded my team. I've expanded how many clients we've worked with. I've expanded the kinds of offerings and so on and so forth. And so that amount of money stays the same. However, the amount of money that comes in and out of my world has expanded, as well as my capacity for it to come in without destroying me or go out without me collapsing, right? I've attuned my nervous system enough to be able to handle that expanded flow of money. So ultimately, this this mastery around power, really reframing it around responsibility, um, getting into the understanding of leadership and embracing your desires are all necessary for you to allow more money to flow into your life. So, with that said, I want you to take this with you through the rest of your week and look at where are the places that you are attempting to give up your power, or you have been giving up your power, because it is completely natural. It is human nature, actually, for us to want to give up our power a lot in most things. It's much easier for us to get to continue victim storyhood if, or victimhood stories, gosh, victimhood stories, if we allow ourselves to give up power. We are actually constantly, look at human nature, we are constantly looking for ways to give up our power. However, the more that you reclaim your power, look for where you do have the power to create change in your life and for others, the power to make a difference, the power to make conscious choices that create a different reality, the more that you will experience abundance in all of its forms, and specifically money. I want to take a second and just pop over into the comments to see what kind of gems have been popping up in here. Oh, Katya throwing out there, the more responsibility I take, the more money I make. I love that aha so much. Make sure that you like write that times, right? So good. Got some comments in here about the ripple of impact. So good. Ah. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. An expanded flow of money, the pond versus the ocean. Yes. So Teapot, hi Teapot. Teapot mentioned that every time I get an idea on how to make money, there's an obstacle. So obstacles are opportunities in disguise. They are always opportunities for us to learn more about what's needed in the world, learn more about other people, so on and so forth. And also, they're an opportunity for us to evolve in our own becoming. So, I can tell you that maybe it doesn't seem this way right now, but the truth is that making money is really easy. In fact, once you understand that making money is simply just being able to identify problems and desires in the world, and then serving the tools, resources, guidance, products, etc., that solve those problems or support people in getting what they desire, there's literally just money all around. So, one of the things that you want to be really careful with an idea is that ideas are coming and going all of the time. We have access to so many of them, but we can get very attached to them. So what we want to do with an idea is test it. Test it and see, okay, who is the kind of person that would want this? And you talk to that kind of person, see if they want it. I don't take it as like a real thing until people fork over money for it. So when it comes to ideas, I have tons. I keep a note in my notes on my phone. I keep notes of all of these ideas, and then I look for ways to fulfill those. And 9 out of 10, maybe even more than that, never make it into the world. Just because I'm only one person to be starting it, right? And I have a team, but we can't do all the things. And doing a few things really well, to me, is much more important than doing all of the things. So good. Can I just ask, how do I explore somatically? Okay, let's, for 1 second, you can, so I think this is pertaining to what I was speaking about, um, your nervous system having the capacity for expanded amounts of money, right? So you can actually test this in your body. Notice next time that you go to, let's say, pay a bill or order something that is out of the ordinary for you, or if a large chunk of money comes in, pay attention to what happens in your body. Um, if you notice either a restriction or a tension that starts to form up in your upper back and your shoulders, you start getting tension in your head or in your jaw, clenching your jaw, um, that can be giving you clues to, hey, you are on the edge of your capacity. And so we want to look at, okay, what is our edge, and get comfortable with, aka normalize, expanded levels of wealth. So that can just look like, instead of walking through a mall, when I lived in DC, in Tyson's Corner, there's a really fabulous mall that has, like, Chanel, and I believe there's a Bottega store, and I love that mall. Instead of walking through that mall, telling yourself how you can't afford anything in there, and if you did buy something, it would be like a panic buy, or it would be so stressful. Instead, walking through those spaces and recognizing that you can afford, you can buy anything in there. It's simply choice. It's simply priorities, right? So I can buy this $10,000 handbag. I choose not to, because right now I spend that $10,000 in this other way. And just normalizing that abundance all around you will start to calibrate your nervous system to these expanded levels. That's just one example. There's lots and lots of ways to do that. One of my favorite ways, and the way that I recommend for women, is through co-regulation. I was talking a little bit about this, with our Synarchy Royals, that men are fueled by dopamine. They're driven by dopamine, and women are fueled by oxytocin. Not that women don't have dopamine and men don't have oxytocin. That's not what I'm saying. But oxytocin is a primary driver for women. And oxytocin drives our connection, our ability to feel connected with others. So we grow so much more when we are in community, when we are in collaboration, when we are connected to others that we resonate with, and we can co regulate our nervous system. We can normalize certain things. Like, if you hang out with a group of actors, right, that will inevitably, you will start to regulate with them, and that world will become normal for you, right? If you are in spaces where, you know, people are making $100,000 a month, that begins to feel normal. Or if people have, 500,000 followers, the kinds of challenges that they are experiencing and the kinds of wins that they're experiencing, those become normalized for you. So co-regulation is a thing. I know there's a lot of stuff in the coaching industry where people complain about being in people's energy, but that's an actual thing. That's a thing. We can co-regulate. So good. Do. So Soph R has asked, what about when you associate responsibility with something dreadful and not fun? Well, then responsibility also is going to need a reframe. Because I'll give you a really great example of this, because I also had a not great relationship with responsibility. When I was a young girl, maybe you had this experience. I was an oldest daughter, okay? I'm an oldest daughter, and we tend to be told things like, you have to take responsibility for your sibling, and take responsibility for da 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 da. We associate it with pressure, with guilt, with sacrifice. Sacrifice is another one of those words. So we have to start looking at, what is it that I gain? How does it benefit me to take responsibility? And start looking for the evidence of how you benefit when you take responsibility. So, for example, I worked at Target, and that was my scenario. At the time, I want to say I made $16 an hour, 16.50, which was supposedly good at that time for that role. I made $16 an hour. Now, so long as I was in that role, that was basically my cap. And if I was going to make more money, it was dependent on someone else. However, when I chose to take responsibility for the amount of money that I could make, I was able to then go on to become a top seller in my direct sales company. And at this point, I've made millions of dollars since then, which was not even something I could have fathomed at that time. This is also why certain I'm not with certain conversations about how we should all just have the same amount of money and we should all just have access to da 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 da. Mainly because we aren't all here to have the same experience. Yes, we can all experience abundance, but we're not all here to have the same experience. We have different desires. But also, part of the beauty of entrepreneurship and business is that the more responsibility you take, i.e., you go from just being a solopreneur, taking responsibility for yourself, to then taking on responsibility for more team, you get what? You get to make more money in exchange for taking responsibility for more team and for greater impact in your company, right? So that relationship can change by really paying attention to, when I take responsibility, how do I benefit? When I take responsibility for my son, how do I benefit now? And also, what is the ripple of impact that happens in the future that I also benefit from, right? That can help you with that. And since I brought up the word sacrifice, we can also do the same for sacrifice. I actually, at this point, no longer think I make any sacrifices, and I have made no sacrifices. I don't sacrifice. I make choices. I make choices. I'm always making choices, and some choices may look like a quote unquote restriction in that one area, but I'm simply just choosing to put my energy, my attention, my money in this other place. But I'm choosing that. I don't have to do that ever. There's nothing actually that we have to do. When that really lands with you and you really get that, there's the seed of freedom. The seed of freedom. So I've got, I think, one more from Erica. Amazing insights. Thank you for this. A question. A spiritual teacher I value said that we are not supposed to ask for money and make profit on esoteric work. What is my vision on this? Absolutely not. I do not agree with this. 1000%. I don't agree with this. And here's why. I look at ancient principles, okay? Ancient principles. And even the way that things were set up by our ancestors and why. Our ancestors understood that one's spiritual alignment is the source of abundance in their material life, whether that is love, whether that is health, whether that is money, whether that is happiness. Let me ask you this question. Without spiritual alignment, how is your health? It will eventually deteriorate without proper alignment. Without alignment, how is your money? Well, either you are really going to struggle to make it, or you make it and it feels empty. Spiritual alignment is the most important in that. In your relationships, I'm going to stop going on, but I think you get the point here. Our spiritual well being, spiritual work, therefore, is addressing the root cause of all of your ish, period. We all have a direct connection with spirit. And our level of alignment is what's creating abundance in its different forms in our life. When we are in misalignment, we suffer, we are miserable, we struggle to be loved and love, and so on and so forth. So to me, there is no greater, no more important work than spiritual work. I will then also add that we have a principle, a law, a law in this reality that has to do with energetic exchange. So, part of why so many people are not experiencing transformation, are not experiencing the entire capacity of the spiritual works that they are on the receiving end of, is because of wonky energetic exchange. If they do not have buy-in, if they are not um, committed energetically, whether that it doesn't have to be money, it could be time, it could be attention, it could be opportunities, whatever that is. But without that skin in the game, they are much less likely to do their part to be able to hold, maintain, or grow on the receiving end of the work that they are experiencing. Period. So, part of why so many people have this perspective is that in many of our ancient cultures, because of what I was sharing before about how they were structured and spiritual alignment, the spiritual foundation as like the priority, as like one of the most important things, people just naturally took care of and provided energetic exchange to their teachers, to their priests and priestesses, to their guides and healers. And that looked like, okay, I need healing for XYZ. I'm going to bring, I grow potatoes and cows. So I'm bringing potatoes and a cow in exchange for the healing that I'm going to receive. And so the shamans, the healers, the priests, etc., were and are still in some places very well taken care of, like some of the most well taken care of people. And people also understood the value of being in their energy. That's a thing. Now, that gets a bad rap in coaching, but part of what being in their energy looked like was they also had their own farm and were like taking care of themselves, but they had students who would come or people who wanted to learn, and those people would come to be in their energy. Now, while they're in their energy, what are they doing? They're learning from the master. They're learning things. They're getting that teacher's perspective, and they are also taking care of the teacher's land. They're also supporting with cooking and cleaning and growing and harvesting, and they're engaged in the environment. So there's an exchange happening because they are learning spiritual principles, various healing modalities, so on and so forth by proximity, and they are giving their time, attention, and energy in exchange. So there are some teachers who say, "Oh, you are not to receive money." Well, here's the thing. Here is the thing. Um, I don't see any students coming and helping over here, right? I don't see anyone bringing bushels of blueberries and grapes, right? We now utilize money as a representative of the blueberries and the grapes and the cows and the potatoes. That's the only difference. So I have to lovingly disagree with your teacher on this. And this is a hill that I will die on. Period. Period. Here's the thing. Okay, rant. Hold on, just a quick rant. Here's the thing that really does also really piss me off about this. The thing that pisses me off about it is that you then have people who are like the most spiritually connected, the most conscious and understanding of how things work, and often the most empathic people who then are living in poverty and are martyred because of this idea that they should not receive money. Meanwhile, we end up with the most absolutely ridiculous leaders possible. I'm in the US. I'm not going to get too political here. I'm in the US. But right now, the conversation about the two people that might be competing for the presidency should be a sign. It should be a sign. Like, this is the best that we have in a country of how many people? Why is that? Why? It's because our spiritual leaders, our spiritual leaders don't have the funds to get in front of everybody. They don't have the money to travel to different places in the country to promote their ideas and their perspectives. So what do we end up with? We end up with the ones who sell their soul for a buck to the highest corporate bidder. I'm starting to sweat, y'all. This really gets to me. It really, really gets to me. I'm just also going to mention, as a side note, what I've experienced is that I have so many clients. Number one, I require energetic exchange because number one, I know I've seen it too many times. I know what is about to pop off in people's lives when they begin on this transformative journey. I know it. I've seen it too many times. You can't tell me that I haven't seen it. There's lots of evidence. And even with that, so many of my clients, out of gratitude, still go above and beyond and send me the most beautiful gifts because there's such a gratitude for how their life has changed. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at like this beautiful gong from my client, Maya Pearl. Like, it's insane. Handbags, jewelry, like, it's not so much about how much did it cost, but that the person had this intention, this gratitude for how I've shown up in their lives, that they desire to express that in a form. And by the way, my love language is gifts. It is gifts. So I always receive them in so much gratitude and so much joy, and I love them and I use them and I put them up, and it's magical. So I know that we don't have a world that has many proponents of healers and psychics and priests and priestesses and, alchemists making money. However, I want you to make so much money. I want you to make so much money that your cup is so full that you have nothing but abundance to give, free of detachment, free of greed, of ill intentions. We are not going to have the world that we want to see until spiritual folks start allowing themselves to receive in abundance. I think we're going to end on that point. Thank you for bringing that up. I am not saying this with any malice for any spiritualists that have held on to this belief. I understand where it comes from. I have compassion for it. There are some people who that is going to be their MO. However, I want to see people not having to work at McDonald's as a fry cook and be healing on the side, and instead be able to heal full time and be able to take care of themselves and be able to teach others their modalities and be able to help people in their well-beings. Like, that's the world that I want to see. I don't want to see people who are spiritually blessed starving. With that, I will see you next week for more on money, because it's still Money Mindset May. I hope you got Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to be notified for next week's, and I will see you then. Bye.